Transition Tuesday. I'm Jane. This is Joe. So, Joe is kind of an innocent bystander regarding this week's topic, continuing in our series of Joe's last year of school. Today, we are talking about some caregiver truths. Because obviously, Joe, being a person with a disability whose disability has a pretty significant impact on his life, the caregiver aspects of his life sort of magnify in importance because of that. But our situation is not the only one. Nationally, 75% of adults with disabilities live at home. And nearly 1 million with caregivers over the age of 60. Now this information comes from the 2017 Family and Individual Needs for Disability Support Survey, the FINDS survey. The ARC was one of several disability-related agencies who has participated in this FINDS, in putting together this FINDS survey data. And the most recent, I think the first one was in 2010, and then they updated it in 2017. So these numbers are from 2017, but it kind of gives you an idea. You know, numbers shift, and I personally am terrible with math. And numbers are not my friend, nor is paperwork, but it's good to have a perspective. I do have an appreciation of data and statistical information, even though I'm not a math person. So, but I wanted to give you some information from that survey, particularly if you are the caregiver of someone, because it's kind of good to know the climate that you're in when you're planning. So caregiving and work. 6 in 10 respondents to the 2017 survey said that at least 3 or more of these work-related impacts apply to their lives. So some of the things that impact your work life when you're the caregiver of a person with significant disabilities, going in late, or having a warning from your employer for repeated absences, excessive lateness. Turning down a promotion, maybe because the hours would be impossible for you to do, requirements for travel, or, you know, commitments that you cannot make to an employer based on your responsibilities as a caregiver. Cutting back hours, having to cut back the hours you work. Giving up work entirely, retiring early, losing benefits, or out-of-state opportunities that come your way, which you can't take because, like for example, we have a comp waiver in Georgia. If we move to another state, then those funding opportunities through the comp waiver would go away. And we'd be looking at probably either being on a waiting list again for those services or being in a state where those services are not available at all. So those are some considerations that every caregiver has relating to their life as an employee. So caregiver health, now this is self-reported to the FINES survey. 38% reported their health is good. 23% said fair. 26% said very good, 8% said excellent, and 5% said poor. And under the category of stress, 31% said they were very stressed. So this is self-reporting, and I can tell you that most of the time when people ask me how I'm doing, I say good and leave it at that. So I'm going to leave it at that. Out-of-pocket expenses for families. So 92% reported out-of-pocket expenses in addition to funding, okay? So these out-of-pocket expenses might include things like buying a handicap-accessible vehicle, additional therapeutic services, additional caregiver needs, equipment needs that insurance won't pay for, counseling support, things like that. Lots of things that don't fall under the umbrella of covered services under like Social Security benefits or the comp waiver, school, etc. Health insurance. 8% said they spend no out-of-pocket money. 5% said they spend, I guess this is over a lifetime. I couldn't get what is the time, like over a lifetime or per year. I don't think it's per year, so I can't tell you how much over how much time, but maybe this will give you some perspective. So 5% said $1 to $100. 21% said $101 to $1,000. 30% said $1,001 to $5,000. 20% said $5,001 to $10,000, and 17% said more than $10,000. And again, these are 2017 numbers. So this is pre-COVID numbers. So who even knows what? There's going to be so much data that comes out of COVID and post-COVID. It'll be really interesting to see what that looks like. Community support, or lack thereof. 59% reported providing more than 40 hours per week of caregiving outside of community services. In other words, day services program, respite program, or direct support professional provided caregiving services. Okay, so this is saying 59, almost 60% reported providing more than 40 hours per week. So a full-time job, 40 hours per week. Are you seeing the picture here? 38% reported providing more than 80 hours per week. Okay, so what? I had to think about this. I had to think about that. So I did Joe's numbers. So I'm going to use our world as an example of what this 59% and 38% means. Okay, there's 168 hours in a week. So supported hours for Joe. School takes up 33 hours, and direct support provider hours total 18 per week. That's 51 hours per week. Now, just as an aside, my work with the Georgia Parent Mentor Partnership is part-time, so that's 20 hours per week, but we only get 18 hours of direct support professional hours through our comp waiver. So 2 hours of every week, right there, 2 hours of my work week are unsupported. Unsupported time at home is 117 hours out of the week, and Joe's awake for 61 and he's asleep for 56. So 51 hours per week are supported, and then there's this 117 that are not supported. Next year, when Joe is out of school, awake hours will total 61 because there's no school hours. That's 94 hours per week of unsupported time that will be dependent on a caregiver. Yeah. Boy, oh boy, reality is hitting me hard right now, y'all. Joe, don't take any of this personally, dude. We're just talking about numbers. Options to consider. Okay, so we know. Okay, so we're looking at this crazy number of 94 hours per week. We have options. I'm not going to panic just yet. I can add more DSP support hours because when we have Joe's meeting to plan what his budget will be, Joe's support coordinator knows that Joe has turned 22 and will be no longer eligible for school-supported services. So that means that we can add potentially some more hours of direct support, professional time, caregiver time to Joe's weekly schedule. And Joe will have a part in that decision-making process. Who is it going to be? What are they going to do? Activities, goals for personal development, all of those things are possible, and that's a very positive thing. So I don't mean to scare you, but let's look at this. Let's dig in and look at the realities of being a caregiver of a person like Joe in this time in the state of Georgia with what challenges we have. So we can add more direct support time. We can find something Joe wants to do. I would love to find a day services program that Joe would be eligible for. Joe is not eligible for the one of the programs that is available in White County because he is G-tube fed, and according to Georgia rules and regs, you have to have a nurse to do the G-tube. And so, and he also requires a little more personal care than, say, a group. It's kind of like school. In school, in a mainstream gen ed classroom, you have one teacher to, say, 28 students. Well, if that student has an IEP, a special education services plan, and needs more direct educational support, then there are classrooms with a lower teacher-student ratio to support those needs. Same kind of thing. Some day services programs are available to people who have a higher level of need, thus the ratio of client to direct support person in that program are lower. And in White County, where we live, the programs that are available do not offer that level of support. So we are searching for that. Potentially there might be one thing happening, but it's not here yet. So maybe by the time Joe's done with school, it will be available, but it is not yet. So that's a big question mark with not any good choices at this time. You know, if I had to take him out of our community to go to a program, then that would impact my ability to work. And remember, I went back to that, one of the impacts was giving up work entirely. That's not an option really for us, but it could be. If Joe doesn't get extra support hours, you know, what does that mean for us? You know, if we don't find a day program, what will Joe's quality of life look like if he doesn't have good things to engage him? Joe likes being around people. He does have a limited energy level for going out, you know, traveling long distances to get to a program might not be a good option for him. Close to home is the best option for him. So we're gonna have to be pretty creative about finding some support services for him, I guess, is what I'm saying, the bottom line. And then the other thing is, we have to give ourselves time to try it out and make changes. You know, kind of like a gap year. I'm thinking about Joe's next year as a gap year. We're going to have to figure out, Joe's going to have to figure out what he wants, what he likes, what he doesn't like. And then he's going to have to be very clear in his communication to me so that I can give him some guidance and create the best options for him. And hopefully I can continue to do the things that I've been doing in my work life, which I find frankly very satisfying and would like to continue doing, and also support Joe in living his best life. I mean, that's the reality of any caregiver. Whether you have a child that's come back home to live because they've graduated from college and they can't find a job, or you have a child who maybe has limited challenges due to a disability and can't find a job because frankly, sometimes being a person with a disability and finding employment is challenging, or finding a school that suits your needs through their Disability Resources Center. You know, what's a good fit for you? Or, you know, just not knowing what you want to do. So you kind of take some time to be at home and figure some things out. The caregiver of that person, regardless of the amount of time you spend caregiving and the list of needs that the person has, all of these things are transition planning items that you need to figure out. So, do I have easy answers for you today? Do I have a checklist for you to go by that you can go, okay, done? Not really, y'all. Sometimes the questions are way bigger than, you know, my little brain can summon the answers to. But it's worth the conversation. It's worth the discussion. If you don't have a person with a disability in your life, you can relate to some of this. If you have a child who's maybe having some inability to launch, there's all kinds of situations where caregivers, and aging caregivers in particular, are dealing with some big, heavy questions about what the future will hold for their loved one. So, heavy topic today, y'all. Maybe I drank too much coffee this morning. I don't know. But If you have any questions or comments about what we've talked about, we would love to hear them. You can email us at transition2s@gmail.com. We hope that you will subscribe to our YouTube channel, Transition Tuesdays with Jane and Joe. And who knows what we'll be talking about next week. See you then.